I mean, the biggest thing for me was finally landing Albert Brooks because he's kind of my comedy hero. And he hasn't been in the Bay Area doing anything publicly for like 50 years, like for real.
That was Cole Stratton, co-founder and co-director of SF Sketchfest. I'm Jeff, and this is Storied San Francisco, a podcast about artists, activists, and small businesses that make this city so special. In this bonus episode, Cole talks a little about his life up to this point, meeting folks in San Francisco and starting SF Sketchfest in 2002, and this year's comedy festival, which kicks off today. Go to sfsketchfest.com for more info. Here's Cole Stratton.
I was born on a small farm. No, it's no farm, but I was born in Michigan. I spent my first 9 years there in Okemos, which is near East Lansing. My mom worked at Michigan State, and then she basically got a job at UC Davis that was a promotion and paid a lot more. So we, loaded up the truck like the Beverly Hillbillies and went to Davis, California. And
no shade on Michigan or East Lansing, but I'm going to call that a little bit of a correction.
Sure.
Coming out here. I'm a transplant too. Like I love it out here. So
my life would have been very different if we stayed in Michigan. I put it that way. But Davis is primarily where we set up shop for a long time. So I went to, high school there and everything. And then off to college at San Francisco State, which is where I met all my Sketchfest friends and partners and things.
When were you at State? I have to ask.
I was at State from 94 to 2000. Took me 6 years because I kept a very low course load for no reason because I was in no hurry. Yep. So that's I lived there for that, and then I lived there until like 2002. So I was there for.
You lived out at State or like in student housing?
I mean, near State. We lived in the dorms for like a year. That's actually where I met David Owen. Was in the dorms. He's one of my Sketchfest partners. And then we decided the dorms weren't for us. So the next year we moved out and moved in together with my roommate at the time, Jeremiah. I'm one of the high rises in Park Merced. And
shit.
Yeah. There for a while. And Dave still has a place over there in addition to another place.
Can I ask what are the views like from those towers? Like I've never been in them, but I've always, because it's like, well, I'll just put that question out. Then I'll editorialize.
I mean, look, San Francisco State is always under construction. It always has been. As far as when I went there, it always is when I come visit. So I feel like it was just the view of whatever crane is being worked on something at that given time. And with the fog, it is usually pretty thick in the Sunset area in general. So you often can't see too much outside of it.
But I would think those construction cranes pop against the gray background of them.
They really do. They really do. They really stand out.
So there's something, yeah. So what happened after Park Merced?
So basically, we lived there. Well, we moved into a garden apartment there. We were only in the high rise for like a year because you had people above you, below you, on every side of you, and it seemed like anything. You turned the TV on and someone complained. So we had to get out of there. So we were there for a while, and then I graduated and stuff, and we started the festival and things. And then about 2 years into the festival, I decided to make the jump to LA because I was doing acting stuff, and it seemed like the place I needed to go in order to make said acting things happen more. I'd kind of done everything you could do in San Francisco in terms of like I was on Nash Bridges twice, things like that. And I had done an improv show on New Year's once with Greg Proops, and he was like, you should go to LA, like this, that's the next step for you. So that kind of sealed it. And then I went down there in 2004. That's when I moved, 2004. And I've been in LA.
Cole, can we go back just real quickly in your own bio? Like, where did this acting / comedy stuff come from for you?
So growing up, I always did theater and stuff. Like my dad was an actor and things too. He was in a band in the 70s and things, but he liked to act, and he was a lover of comedy and things too. So he introduced me to kind of a lot of my formative comedy things that I love. So growing up, we watched a lot of Albert Brooks. We watched Carson, just tons of things. I was raised by HBO, I like to say too. So I saw like every movie in the world. So I was like very much into movies, comedy, everything else. And then I took an improv class when I was 12 in the Sacramento area Regional Theater Alliance. SARTA did like improv for teens. So I took that, and then it just like the bug just got me then and there. And I've been doing it ever since. and I'm 48 now, so that's 36 years of improv or whatever. So I knew I could do that well. It's something I've always kind of excelled at. And that was kind of the thing that propelled me to, focus on comedy as well as the acting thing. And then I was always a huge sketch fan, watching like Kids in the Hall and Mr. Show and all that stuff, SNL growing up, obviously. So that's kind of where, when we were in college, decided to try to like start up a sketch thing, which is where our sketch team came from, which was the precursor to SF Sketchfest.
Okay, thank you for that. So you said, and I've read that y'all started the festival in '01. Is that correct?
Yeah, January 2002, I think, is
Or
when our
20,
first one was.
2002. But
Yeah.
then you said you personally moved to LA in '04. Is that correct?
Yeah. So after the second festival wrapped, I went down a couple months after that. Um, year
Okay.
year two
I
was a
want to
little
know.
tough. So I just thought it was something.
Yeah. But I want to know the story. I could speculate, but I want to know the story of like you left, and I believe some of the co-founders, like, does anyone, no one lives here anymore, but y'all are still doing this festival
Dave,
here. Like, I want to
yeah,
know what's that all about.
David Owen still lives in San Francisco, but also has a place in Sacramento. Kind of goes back and forth. Janet
Okay.
Varney is the other co-founder. She's moved to LA about a year after I moved to LA, and she's really been successful down there. She's the voice of Korra and Legend of Korra and a bunch of other stuff. So, and I think it really actually kind of helped the festival, us moving, because we made a lot of contacts down here in a sense, and then we're like, you should come do the festival up there and things. So I think it only ended up helping in a way that it felt at the time like, how are we going to do this? But as like tech transition to be like, all our planning early on were like, we had little post-it notes that we put on a big board to like how we were going to schedule stuff, so, and then things
Mhm.
started to move towards like, oh wait, we can make these weird Google Doc things, what's that? That kind of thing, and all of a sudden we could just produce everything virtually and then just go on site when we needed to. Like we'll go up to San Francisco a couple times throughout the year to like, scout venues or run other events or things. And then obviously I'm there for like a little over 3 weeks every single January. So it kind of feels like, I get 11 months in LA, 1 month in San Francisco, like in that kind of pattern. So I still feel like I'm very much a part of the city, even though I'm not there full time like I used to be.
Putting on a festival like this, I'm going to concur that you are a big part of the city. Do you want to speak, before we move on to this year's festival, do you want to speak to sort of where San Francisco is situated in the greater world of comedy? Like, it's kind of a big comedy. It's no LA, but it's a big comedy town, right?
It's definitely is. I feel like there's a general track towards what people do in their careers, at least if they want to take the next step. So like people that like breed in good comedy communities like San Francisco or like Portland, Chicago, those kinds of places, they ultimately usually make the jump to either LA or New York if they want to
Right.
pursue bigger things. Doesn't mean that they still don't want to go to their hometowns and hone it there. But San Francisco definitely is one of the top like breeding grounds for comedy, I think. And the scene has always been very experimental, and very DIY. I mean, if you look back at the stuff in like North Beach in the 70s and 80s and stuff with like the Hungry Eye and Purple
Mhm.
Onion and all that stuff too, and people like Zach Galifianakis taping his special at the Purple Onion and things like that
Mm.
too. I always feel like there's a very much like San Francisco embraces like the weird, like Austin does, like it's like one of the things
Yeah.
about.
But also, if I can seize on a word that you just used, you're talking about comedy, but you used the word experimental. And I was having a conversation recently with someone, a stranger actually, but we were talking about like there might be a connection. Like San Francisco is largely known for artists and entrepreneurs, and I was like, but they have something in common. They come here and they try shit, right? It's
Yeah,
it's I
yeah,
think,
no, yeah.
and I think that's true of, well, comedy is art, but like I think that's true of all of this here. Like people come here to experiment with lifestyle. Like it's just that kind of place. Always has
Yeah, I
been.
mean, cuisine too. Like there's a lot
Yeah.
of great food coming out of San Francisco, a lot of great chefs and things. Yeah, I think it's just one of those towns that like is very arts forward, very uh just what do you want to try? Like we'll give you a shot at it. And I feel like the audiences in San Francisco are very fair and good. And
Mm.
like I noticed that through comedy at least is like They will be very responsive if something is good. If it's not great, you'll know.
Right. Right.
But they're fair, which some places aren't. Like LA audiences are very different and can be tough because it's mostly like other performers checking out performers and kind of looking at them
Mm.
with one eyebrow raised, like there's,
Right.
whereas I
Right.
feel like San Francisco is like, we really want to see this stuff. We're hungry for it. We're excited to go out. We're excited to see these things. And even though they have options, a lot of options in San Francisco, there's a lot of entertainment there. But they've always been hungry for the comedy we bring to the Bay, and we're very thankful for that.
Last question on the history of the festival. Was it ever a question of moving it somewhere? Or was it always going to stay here?
It was, I mean, the thing started sort of on accident. It was kind of like we had our sketch comedy team and we didn't really have a place to perform regularly. There wasn't many venues back then. There was the Mock Cafe, which had like a big beam in the middle of the room. And
Mhm.
if you did it on comedy club stages, people are like, what is this? I don't understand what
Right.
this is. And to rent a theater was like, you couldn't just do one-offs. You had to rent for a month or whatever. So that's why we like banded together with like 5 other local sketch teams, rented the Shelton Theater, and then like came up with like, it's a sketch fest, that's what it is, sure, just to have an angle. And
Mhm.
then everything like sold out and stuff, and we were like, oh wait, maybe this is something. And then from that point on, like year 2, we moved to like a bigger theater, the Gateway, which used to be Eureka. And then we
Mhm.
got like Fred Willard and Upright Citizens Brigade to come and stuff like that too, just by writing letters and then being like, hey, we're college kids who love comedy, come, please come. And like thankfully performers early on like decided to take a chance. I think it didn't hurt that we were in San Francisco,
Mm.
because people were like, yeah, I'll go up to San Francisco. It's fun. It's not like we were, the Akron, Ohio Comedy Festival. Please fly out here, or whatever. Um,
Yes.
so I think that people love the city, so they want to be there anyways. Um,
Did you say year 2, Fred Willard?
yeah, Fred Willard's Hollywood Players
Wow.
was a sketch group that he did that he like kind
Mm.
of wrote and ran and was in LA, in North Hollywood actually. And yeah, somehow I got them to come up and UCB and things, and just kind of like grew
That's
it out from
rad.
there, and like learned lessons every year. And
Yep.
year 2, Tom Sawyer, who used to run Cobb's, kind of came on and helped, because I did a lot of stuff at Cobb's back in the day when it was in the cannery, and
Mm.
kind of had the perspective of a comedy booker, a little bit more
Mhm.
from like clubs and stuff to kind of understand that side of it. And
Mhm.
initially it was just sketch, and after a few years we're like, we should just do all comedy because sketch is very finite, especially nowadays. I feel like there's just not that much coming out anymore.
Mhm.
um so thankfully we made that pivot around year like 7 or 8 or something, I think, and then just made it all comedy. And now we're even doing things that aren't comedy, like just cool music shows or whatever, like
Yeah.
just things that we think
Yeah.
are cool. Basically, it's just like we just book what we like, more or less, or things that we like think other people in the Bay Area would really like. We're not like so much like, what's the algorithm say we should book? Like we're the opposite of that.
It sounds like maybe y'all had an experience that I had a few years ago with this podcast, which was that somewhere along the way you realized, wait, this is ours and we can do whatever we want with it, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Well, that's a good segue now if we can pivot to let's talk about this year's fest. I will admit I've looked at the program a couple times and I'm over fucking whelmed. Like it's big.
Yeah, we actually pared down. I mean, it's been bigger.
Wow.
Like we have just under 200 shows this year, I think. And last year we had like 240, and the year before that we had like 270. And like the 270 year was the one we were like, this is way too many shows. We were like competing with ourselves to the extent that we were like hurting our houses. And so we
Mhm.
just kind of kept, going back a little, but we still have tons. It still goes for, 18 days, only dark on Mondays. So
I also, when I look at things like that, I think about what it takes to put those together and then actually make them happen. So
it's the
I
logistics are
know
pretty
this much of
crazy.
what you're talking about or
I mean,
what y'all are up against.
I usually say it's kind of like putting together a jigsaw puzzle, but you don't have the picture of what it's supposed to be. So like you're
Yep.
just picking random pieces and trying to see if they fit together. So that's
Yep.
kind of how we program this thing. And then it's based on people's availability and stuff too. But we just try to brainstorm a bunch of stuff, start putting out feelers in the summer and stuff. And somehow it comes together. And every year we manage to, I think, outdo ourselves, which, every year we're like, I don't know how we can outdo this, but I think we found ways most years to do it. I mean, this year I think is like maybe our strongest lineup. It's pretty insane. The
Good
fact that
one. It's
there's
a really
definitely
good one.
a lot of big fish we got that we've been trying for years to get, that finally
Hmm.
came through kind of all at the same time. That was pretty incredible. So
Rad.
Yeah.
What are if you were asked, which I'm going to now ask you, to choose maybe, and they don't have to be, you don't have to play favorites, but just like five events that y'all are putting on that for you stand out, lightning round, go.
I mean, the biggest thing for me was finally landing Albert Brooks because he's kind of my comedy hero. And he hasn't been in the Bay Area doing anything publicly for like 50 years, like for real.
5-0?
5-0. Like,
Whoa.
so like he's the
Holy
one who's
shit.
like, yeah, I haven't. So if you want to go see Albert Brooks, do it now because otherwise he'll be back when he's 120. So the fact that we were able to get him finally, and like he's just, I just his sensibility, I think he's so brilliant. So to be able to do a tribute to him, have him talk with Kevin Pollak, who's a good friend of ours and who moderates a lot of our stuff, and he's Bay Area born and raised. So yeah, Albert to me, that's the biggest one for me. Obviously, getting Bill Murray is pretty crazy too, and Tim Curry like that. Those three, I think, were the ones that I was just like, oh my god, how did we do that?
Sounds like a weird law firm, Murray, Curry, and Brooks.
I know, right? We started to have like Curry, Murray, and then we did have That's a Bad Idea, which has Curry Barker in it, but they had to cancel.
Mm,
But I was just like, any other Curry,
mm.
Steph Curry. We are doing Mr. Throwback, so
Seems.
so there you go. But yeah, that's big. Those were all big for me. We're doing Naked Lunch, which is like Phil Rosenthal and David Wild's podcast, and I don't know if you've ever watched Somebody Feed Phil. It's just delightful. And his guest is Paul Reiser. We just added him, which is pretty amazing.
Yes, that's great.
Because he had a bit of a resurgence in Stranger Things. So I'm hoping that people will want to come
Hmm.
see him, which is great.
Hmm.
And music is the Kids in the Hall we're doing, which is I think is pretty amazing. Like we're gonna do a bunch of songs from the series and stuff, and I can't wait to see it, especially if we can get Bruce to be his Grievo character from Brain Candy, then it will all be worthwhile for me.
Awesome. I did see a Napoleon Dynamite like table read or read that caught my eye. And the airplane, right? You're
Yeah, the
doing
airplane one's gonna be cool. So we got like, Robert Hayes and Julie Haggerty reprising their roles. And we have
amazing.
like David and Jerry Zucker who will be on hand too. And the whole rest of the cast, we're just not announcing. It's a bunch of celebrities reading parts. So you won't know until they're announced on stage, but there's some pretty amazing heavy hitters there too. So if you're on the
Mhm.
fence and you hear this, just buy a ticket. It will be worth it. Trust me on that.
Don't tell me the corpse of Leslie Nielsen's going to be up on stage.
If only.
I
We
would
do
pay
have
top dollar for that.
we do have someone pretty great reading that part though. So I'm very excited for that show. We usually try to do a couple live reads because we were also doing one of the Star Wars holiday special with the George Lucas talk show guys and Star Wars Minute
Yes.
dudes, which that will
Yes.
be. I mean, that whole thing is ridiculous anyways, but I can't wait to see
Mhm.
how they do the read of it. And the state are doing a live read of a unproduced musical that they wrote called Hubbub at Porcupine Corners. So that will be pretty entertaining, I think, too.
Okay, well, that's a lot. Maybe let's end with you telling folks how to find more and slash purchase tickets and that sort of thing and venue information. Anything you want to plug.
Sure. The main easy way to find everything is just go to sfsketchfest.com and then click on schedule. Everything is laid out there. Everything has links to buy tickets because we have to use a bunch of different ticketing services based on the venues.
Right.
So just click through stuff. If something's sold out, like I think we always have at least released some tickets at the door to everything. So if there's something you really want to see that's sold out, I really recommend just getting there 90 minutes early, getting in line or getting on the wait list, and there's a good chance you'll get in. I feel like sometimes people don't do that, and like there's a lot of attrition nowadays. I find like post pandemic a lot of people just buy tickets and don't show, and then if it's showtime, like we're gonna fill those seats. So I definitely recommend coming down if you're on the fence about something or if you think something is sold out, because there's a decent chance you'll get in. I'll put it that way. And we use about 20 venues throughout the city, and we open on the 16th of this month. So whoa, Jesus, six
Which
days from
is
now.
to which is today. This will come out on the 16th.
Yep,
So
it's today. And then we close on February 2nd. So, and there are things for everybody. There's on the scheduling page, you can even click by genre of kind of show. So if you're like, I love stand up, you can put a filter on and see all the stand up shows or improv shows, sketch shows, TV and film related things. So, definitely come check whatever out. Every show should be fantastic if we've done our job.
I'm right. I'm definitely gonna go for, among other things, the pun off show that y'all are doing. Yeah. Big fan of puns.
Yeah, I don't think that they get the love they deserve because people always groan, and I'm like, that's a badge of honor if you get a groan on a pun, because I feel like you've done a pun well. Sometimes, like, if I'm doing a show and I do a pun and it gets that reaction, I will stop whatever I'm doing and I will bow. I will take a bow and then go back into the scene, keep going to just acknowledge that the pun is happening.
Yeah, I love that. I love that a lot. Okay, Cole. Well, thank you so much for being on Storied SF. Anything else you want to add before we wrap?
I don't think so. You can check me out on things if you want to find me. I'm at Stratton Cole on Instagram. That's probably the best place to go to find me.
That was SF Sketchfest's Cole Stratton. Be sure to check back next week when you'll get to know Ashley Graham, art director at the Fillmore. Episode 6 drops next Tuesday, wherever you get podcasts. Music for Storied San Francisco was produced, performed, and curated by Otis McDonald. Our contributing producer is Aaron Lim of Bitch Talk Podcast. And the show is produced and hosted by me, Jeff Hunt. Now in our 7th season, we have more than 220 episodes available on our website, storiedsf.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If possible, please rate and review the show. I want to know what you think. Follow us on Instagram and Threads at storiedsf, and reach out to us there or email us at storiedsf@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Be extra careful crossing the street, and keep being wacky, creative, and kind out there. See you next time on Storied San Francisco. We acknowledge and respect the first humans of the unceded land we call San Francisco, the Ramaytush Ohlone. We condemn the genocide of these and other tribes across the Western Hemisphere. We honor their legacy and history, and we support rematriation and sovereignty efforts.
This podcast is a proud member of the BFF.FM podcast network. Learn more at podcast.bff.fm.
BFF.FM, best frequencies forever.